aim to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. On today's headlines. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. received his booster shot against COVID. Marcos received the additional dose during his attendance to the Pinalakas vaccine campaign at the Department of Health vaccination site in SM City, Manila. Marcos said he decided to get the booster shot to prove that the vaccine is important to strengthen immunity against severe COVID-19 infection. And China staged fresh military drills around Taiwan, slamming a new visit by U.S. lawmakers to the island days after a similar trip by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi triggered a furious response from Beijing. The five-member congressional delegation led by Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts met with President Tsai Ing-wen on Monday. And the World Health Organization, which is looking to rename monkeypox, called for help from the public in coming up with a less stigmatizing designation for the fast-spreading disease. And the UN Special Envoy for Myanmar, Noylin Heiser, has traveled to the country for the first time since her appointment last October. First in our news, China staged fresh military drills around Taiwan on Monday, slamming a new visit by United States lawmakers to the island days after a similar trip by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi triggered a furious response from Beijing. The five-member congressional delegation, led by Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, met with President Tsai Ing-wen. Let's listen in.
We have a moral obligation to do everything we can to prevent an unnecessary conflict. And Taiwan has demonstrated incredible restraint and discretion during challenging times. We are looking forward to hearing from you and your colleagues, Madam President, about your hopes and dreams and how we can further strengthen the friendship between the United States and Taiwan.
The unannounced two-day trip by senior members of Congress prompted China to renew its rhetoric that it would prepare for war over Taiwan. The bipartisan trip sparked another bellicose response from Beijing, which said it had carried out a fresh round of combat readiness patrol and combat drills in the sea and airspace around Taiwan Island. Monday's drills followed days of huge exercises around Taiwan in the wake of Pelosi's visit, which saw Beijing send warships, missiles, and jets into the waters and skies near the island. Taipei condemned those drills and missile tests as preparation for an invasion. China's Communist Party has never ruled Taiwan, but says it will use force if necessary to take the island and bristles at any perceived treatment of it as a sovereign nation state. The ASEAN regional bloc has opposed provocative actions in Taiwan Strait while backing the One China policy and proposing to play its role to facilitate peaceful dialogue between all parties. The regional grouping called for upholding the principles of the UN Charter and the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. The top American naval commander in Asia criticized what he said were unsafe and provocative actions by Chinese warplanes, reiterating U.S. complaints about behavior that officials argue could prompt a clash. Take a look. There has been an increase in what would consider unsafe, unprofessional, or non-standard intercepts. And it's not just United States aircraft. It's also our allies and partners' aircraft. Thomas told reporters in Singapore, where the U.S. was taking part in a regional training exercise. It's the provocative nature of the intercepts that's got our attention. On Sunday, Senator Ed Markey, a Massachusetts Democrat, arrived in Taiwan as part of a 5-member congressional group, prompting China to announce the fresh military patrols. Unlike earlier this month, when China conducted live fire exercises and likely fired ballistic missiles over Taiwan's main island. Beijing didn't immediately specify exclusion areas for commercial planes or ships to avoid. I know that the gorilla in the room is launching missiles over Taiwan, Thomas said on Tuesday. If we just allow what to happen, or if we just allow that to happen and we don't contest that, that'll become the next norm. And that is not acceptable. That's irresponsible. 13 German military aircraft were on their way to Australia as Germany looks to strengthen its presence in the Indo-Pacific region amid growing tensions with China. The 6 Eurofighters and 7 military transport aircraft were due to land in Singapore Tuesday before traveling on to Australia under the mission dubbed Rapid Pacific 2022. The Luftwaffe German Air Force said the fleet will take part in training exercises in Australia and Singapore before stopping off in Japan and South Korea on the way back to Germany. The Luftwaffe's first deployment to the region and comes at a time of heightening tensions between Beijing and the West after China launched military drills around Taiwan following a visit earlier this month by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to the self-governed island. The German army said the aim of the mission is for the Luftwaffe to test its interoperability with allies inside and outside NATO in the Indo-Pacific. Germany has been looking to boost its presence in the Indo-Pacific. In August 2021, dispatched a frigate to the region for the first time in almost 20 years. The 6 Eurofighters and around 250 German soldiers will take part in the 2 training exercises in Australia known as Pitch Black and Kakadu. The missions will involve both air-to-air and air-to-surface combat exercises, including training in how to protect ships from the air. In tonight's other news, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on Wednesday received his second booster shot against COVID during the Pinas Lakas vaccine campaign at the Department of Health vaccination site in SM City, Manila. First, let's listen in.
Yung booster, yung unang vaccination, dalawa lang na ineksyon, okay na tayo. Noon yun, 2020 hanggang 2021. So, ang tawag doon, fully immunized ka na. Ang naging problema ay nagkaroon tayo ng tinatawag na Omicron variant. At yung Omicron, I'm sure narinig nyo naman lahat ito, ang Omicron nagkaroon ng sariling variant. Kaya ang sinasabi ngayon sa atin ng ating mga dalubhasa, ang ating mga eksperto, mga researcher, ay sinasabi, dahil bago itong variant na ito, para maging fully immunized ulit, ay kailangan magkaroon ng booster shot na dahang-dahang pabukas ang ekonomiya. Ayaw natin mag-lockdown. Gusto talaga natin matanggal na yung mask na protocol. Ay kailangan talaga, we have to encourage everyone to have a booster shot. Maliwanag na maliwanag naman, kapag vaccinated ang isang tao, kahit magkaroon, ma-expose siya o ma-positive siya, ay yung tama sa kanya ay hindi na kailangan dalhin sa ospital. Karamihan hindi na kailangan dalhin sa ospital. Yung karamihan asymptomatic pa nga eh. At yung mga namamatay, maliwanag na merong talagang yung tinatawag na nga na comorbidity. So that is why it is very important and it's very clear the benefits of having a booster shot now to combat the problem with the new variants of Omicron. Now, I was just told by Yusek Vergere, mukha namang meron ng ilalabas na vaccine para dito sa mga bagong variant ng Omicron. Kaya pag-aaralan natin, and if it is going to be helpful, gagawin natin ang lahat para madala rito sa Pilipinas.
Now, the Department of Health officer in charge, Maria Rosario Vergere, administered herself the vaccine developed by Pfizer and BioNTech to President Marcos Jr. The president has already caught COVID-19 twice. The DOH officer in charge, Dr. Vergere, administered the United States manufactured Pfizer COVID vaccine to Marcos, presidential son and Ilocos Norte Representative Ferdinand Alexander or Sandro Marcos, who joined the event, also got his additional dose of COVID vaccine. The president expressed hope that he would not experience any side effects after getting vaccinated. To recall, Marcos contracted COVID-19 twice. The first one was at the height of the pandemic in 2020 and got infected anew in July this year. The president said the COVID-19 booster shot campaign is vital to bring the normal situation in the country despite the prevailing pandemic. The president also expressed gratitude to the medical frontliners for keeping the Filipinos protected against the coronavirus. The Department of Tourism on Tuesday night told travelers that measures are in place to ensure their safety while visiting destinations across the Philippines. The global pandemic continues to expose the tourism industry to challenges, but our travelers can rest assured that the Philippine government continues to ensure that minimum public health and safety standards are in place, coupled with the precautionary measures observed by our partners from the private and public sectors. Therefore, our guests can safely enjoy any of our 7,641 islands, even in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to Tourism Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco. Now, the latest CDC travel advisory moves the Philippines along with Russia and Nepal to the COVID level 3 high-risk group. If you are not up to date with your COVID-19 vaccines, avoid travel to the Philippines, said the CDC advisory. Even if you are up to date with your COVID-19 vaccines, you may still be at risk for getting and spreading COVID-19, according to the agency. Unlike many other countries in the West, the Philippines maintains a strict policy on wearing face masks to prevent the spread of the virus. More than 72 million Filipinos have also been fully vaccinated as of August 15 this year. In addition, the department said there is a stark difference between the COVID-19 positivity rate in the Philippines, which averages at 4,001 daily, compared to that of the U.S., which recorded 13,609 new cases in the last 24 hours as of August 16. Citing the Department of Health, the DOT said the country gives more weight to the healthcare utilization rate rather than the number of new cases. Go Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion III believes it's important for the country to adapt to living with COVID-19. And one is to ensure the supply of antiviral medicines like Pfizer's Paxlovid and Molnupiravir as part of the government's pandemic response. Let's listen in.
So itong September, yung public state of health emergency will expire, no? And President Marcos may continue with it or may terminate the state of public health emergency. Pero ang isang importante dyan is that yung mga vaccine manufacturers na are bringing the vaccines here, are they going to file for certificate of product registration? No? Importante yan for us, for the public to be able to buy the vaccines, or will the government continue to buy the vaccines? So if the government will continue to buy the vaccines, then they may have to issue an emergency use EUA, no? Yeah. So it depends, no? At whatever it is, I think the government can always, we can still remove the public state of health emergency. Ang tingin ko, I would support that because even countries na tumataas sa mga kaso, wala naman public state of health emergency kasi hindi naman napupuno ang hospital natin. Maraming tao na i-infect ngayon. In fact, our infection levels are going up. Pero karamihan dyan ay mild naman at hindi nakakonfine dito sa hospitals. Importante rin dito ang mga antiviral medicines natin, no? isang depensa rin para sa mga tao na tinamaan dito sa COVID. Yung molnupiravir at yung Paxlovid, especially Paxlovid, na sa mga matanda at who have a lot of comorbidities, that antiviral medicine is quite effective, no? Pati yung molnupiravir. So malaking bagay ito, assuming that many people get sick, at least they will have these medicines on hand, no? May konting shortage ngayon dito sa Paxlovid. Ang sabi ng Zwellig, padating naman dito in the next 2 weeks, no, of September. So hopefully these stocks will be replenished, no, as we see more people getting infected.
The World Health Organization, which is looking to rename monkeypox, called for help from the public in coming up with a less stigmatizing designation for the fast-spreading disease. The UN Health Agency has for weeks voiced concern about the name of the disease that emerged onto the global stage in May. Let's listen in.
WHO is in the process of assigning new name to monkeypox. It's the responsibility of WHO under the International Classification of Disease to do so. So just for the naming of the disease, WHO is holding an open consultation for a new disease name for monkeypox. Anyone from the public or from academia or from civil society is welcome to propose new names. There is a platform on the WHO website where people can suggest names. So it's very important that we find a new name to monkeypox, because this is best practice, not to create any offense to an ethnical group, a region, a country, an animal, etc. So WHO is very concerned by this issue, and we want really to find a name that is not stigmatizing.
Now, there have been reported cases of people attacking monkeys over disease fears. Monkeypox received its name because the virus was originally identified in monkeys kept for research in Denmark in 1958. But the disease is found in a number of animals and most frequently in rodents. The disease was first discovered in humans in 1970 in the Democratic Republic of Congo, with the spread among humans since then mainly limited to certain West and Central African countries where it's endemic. But in May, cases of the disease, which causes fever, muscular aches, and large boil-like skin lesions, began spreading rapidly around the world, mainly among men who have sex with men. Worldwide, over 31,000 cases have been confirmed since the start of the year, and 12 people have died according to the WHO, which has designated the outbreak a global health emergency. While the virus can jump from animals to humans, WHO experts insist the recent global spread is due to close contact transmission between humans. The Department of Justice announced the filing of criminal charges against 16 individuals who were part of a conspiracy to divert money from foreign sources to local non-government organizations, or NGOs, used as fronts by the Communist Party of the Philippines, New People's Army, or CPP-NPA, and its allied groups. DOJ spokesperson Miko Clavano on Monday said the Anti-Money Laundering Council, or AMLC, investigated the bank accounts of the Rural Missionaries of the Philippines, or RPM. 3 members of the CPP-NPA and were made payees in several checks issued under the name of Rural Missionaries of the Philippines and Rural Missionaries of the Philippines Northern Mindanao region. One of the 2 witnesses used to be the finance officer of various CPP-NPA NGO fronts, including the RMP. According to the witness, the RMP sends project proposals to foreign funders. Once approved, the money will be diverted to communist terrorist groups. The CPP-NPA is listed as a terrorist organization by the U.S., European Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the Philippines. The Anti-Terrorism Council also formally designated the National Democratic Front as a terrorist organization on June 23, 2021, citing it as an integral and inseparable part of the CPP-NPA that was created in April 1973. The UN Special Envoy for Myanmar, Noylin Heiser, has traveled to the country for the first time since her appointment last October. Ms. Heiser, a Singaporean women's rights activist, will focus attention on the country's deteriorating situation. Earlier last year, the military overthrew the elected government, launched a bloody crackdown on protesters, and has been in chaos ever since. Efforts by Myanmar's Southeast Asian neighbors to restore peace have been hampered by the country's recent execution of 4 political activists. Her visit comes a day after the country's imprisoned former leader, Suu Kyi, was convicted on additional corruption charges, adding 6 years to her earlier 11 prison year sentence. Despite that, Myanmar's military rulers agreed to a plan to restore peace and stability in April 2021. Little progress has been made as the state has slipped into a situation that some have characterized as a civil war. The news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
Welcome back. MJ Racadio, our showbiz correspondent, was able to talk to Grammy-nominated singer Jim Brickman, who had a concert with our very own Vina Morales. He was able to talk to Miss Vina Morales. Let's listen in.
Grammy-nominated songwriter Jim Brickman back in the U.S. concert scene, along with Philippines triple threat Vina Morales. I was able to watch their concert and catch up with them. Take a look.
Hi Reyes, how is it like opening for legendary Jim Brickman and Philippines triple threat Vina Morales?
Oh my gosh, it was an amazing experience. Loved every minute of it. Enjoyed just being on stage and getting the privilege and the honor to open up for them was memorable.
So what's new to you as an artist?
Man, just trying to write music. Putting more of my life experience into the words I put on paper.
Vina, you're phenomenal.
Thank you.
You know, you're really amazing. You're really a Philippines triple threat. So what can you say about the audience tonight?
Oh my God, they were amazing as well, and I am grateful that it's a successful concert here at the Bay Area. Of course, with Mr. Jim Brickman, it's really an honor to be singing with him and performing with him on stage. I still have my solo shows.
You have a US tour. Congrats.
Yes, thank you. So I'm still gonna be in Indiana na lang.
All right.
In Chicago. I will be in Miami, North Carolina, Honolulu, Hawaii. I'll be in New York.
Woo!
That is it for our entertainment news. MJ Ricardo here. Always tune in to Net 25. We live in an extraordinary times.
The London-based Environmental Investigation Agency, or EIA, in partnership with the Alan Turing Institute, a UK Centre for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence, is currently developing a bold new AI tool to contribute to law enforcement efforts by creating an extensive database of tiger stripe patterns to identify where the big cats come from and track down its criminals. Take a look.
There are fewer than 4,500 wild tigers left, and they faced a massive population decline in the last 120 years. So we want to do everything we can to help end the trade in tiger parts and products, including tiger skins. So we're looking for new technology that will help us determine where tiger skins are coming from and help connect law enforcement agencies in different countries to investigate these transnational networks that are trafficking tigers. So every tiger's stripe pattern profile is unique, just like our fingerprints. So we can use tiger stripes when we see images of tigers that have been offered for sale online, or we have images of tigers that have been offered for sale in marketplaces or seized. We can use those images to cross-reference against images of captive tigers that might have been farmed for trade, and we can help join the dots as to where do the tigers that we see in trade come from. The idea is that the artificial intelligence will basically, the scientists will create an algorithm, which means that they identify the individual stripe patterns of a unique individual tiger. We have a database of images of tigers that have been offered for sale or have been seized, and when new images emerge, when our investigators get new images, we need to scan those against the database. At the moment we are doing that manually, looking at the individual stripe patterns of each new image that we get and cross-referencing it against the ones we have in our database. But we're also crowdsourcing. We're inviting individuals, whether they're photographers or researchers, academics, who may have images of tigers, where their stripe patterns are clear, and they could be live tigers, dead tigers, tiger parts that have been seen for trade. If they can share those with us, then the scientists, the data scientists, can then develop, train and test an algorithm, but we need thousands of images just to be able to do that phase of the project.
Farming tigers for their parts, like pigs and chickens, violates an international treaty, though it continues in Laos and in China, Vietnam and Thailand. And that's it for this broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Alma Angela. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.